Welcome to Do Your Dailies, the podcast designed to help you on your journey of addiction recovery. We're going to go through the big book of AA and use our collective experience, strength, and hope to help you understand what addiction recovery really looks like. So grab some snacks, sit back, press play, and dig deep. Thanks for being here. Welcome to this episode of the Do Your Dailies podcast. I'm your host, Chris Wilkins, and with Joe and Dave, we are so excited to bring this episode to you guys today, you listeners and you viewers. Gentlemen, how is it so far today?
Had a beautiful, wonderful day. I've been looking forward to this all day, and just grateful to be here today.
Well, we missed a week, so I've got way too much enthusiasm, so it might be coming out my ears. I'm not sure. Remind me. There's a story I would like to tell. I'm not sure we're going to get to it today, but it's a personal story, and it's happened in the last 24 hours, which is proof positive that this program works. And why do I say that? Is because I'm the one that the principals worked on, and I won't go into that just yet, but it is a privilege to be here, and I'm grateful that you folks would sit down and listen to this. And I'm the old guy, I'll own that. I'm going to tip my head so that you can see that there is some hair there. There's not much, but I'll own it. Actually, as I look to my left, there's no hair over there. As I look to my right, there is no over there. So the old man is on top of the hair deal.
There we go.
Jeez, they've got beards.
Just, yeah.
I'm seeing hair on their face. I can see it in their ears. But I got hair on the top of my head. So this program allows you to have more hair on your head if you do it properly. I'll just leave it at that. How's that, Phil?
This statement has not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration, nor is that statement endorsed by Alcoholics Anonymous.
But it is true. Look, I mean,
I'm just grateful. I'm going to take that message for directly what it means, and that just says that I need to still work on me, and that's awesome.
I'll take that.
How about this? This is raw. This is unpracticed. We're doing the deal. So we're going to read today.
Yeah.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. And we are at the very bottom of page 23, and there is a solution. And Joe's going to go ahead and take it away for us.
The tragic truth is that if the man be a real alcoholic, the happy day may not arrive. He has lost control at a certain point. In the drinking of every alcoholic, he passes into a state where the most powerful desire to stop drinking is of absolutely no avail. This tragic situation has already arrived in practically every case long before it is suspected. I'd like to actually stop and address that. For years, the men and women that I worked with, most of them would always acknowledge what's being presented here, is that they always perceived that there was a problem, but they didn't want to acknowledge it, and they just kept persisting in the problem. They kept drinking, thinking that it wasn't as big a deal. They kept being able to exert limited amounts of control, which always just gave them more of an illusion that they could continue drinking and doing what they were doing. And for the listener, what I would encourage you to also understand is that this is the reality of the chronic alcoholic who has really become hopeless. They can't stop, and they continually, perpetually try to provide evidence to everybody around them and themselves that they've got control, but it's just unfortunate they don't have control. And like it says in practically every case, long before it's suspected, they've just gone beyond the scope of like real true human help, and they need something greater. So I will continue. The fact is that most alcoholics, for reasons yet obscure, have lost the power of choice in drink. Our so-called willpower becomes practically non-existent. We are unable at certain times to bring into our consciousness with sufficient force the memory of the suffering and humiliation of even a week or a month ago. we are without defense against the first drink. Wow.
Yeah, comment there, Joe. First of all, that last paragraph that he just read, noticed it's in italicized words. So once again, I'm reminding you that when it's italicized, that was their way of emphasizing. And that's a very, very powerful statement. The memory of suffering and humiliation of even a week or a month ago. Why is that? Why are we so adept at forgetting what happened? Or crafting some excuse. Yeah, but that was Tuesday. I hadn't eaten yet. Or I ate Mexican food and then No, I want to point that out. That is an very clever and efficient exercise of the obsession of the mind. Crafting this lack of memory, or I just don't remember, but deep down we do know. I knew. I couldn't tell you exactly where my truck was, but there was a reason for that, or what I had said. But we are without defense against the first drink. Now that sentence in and of itself, why would I have no defense at this stage? And it's important that we point out that at this stage I have no defense over the first drink. And why is that? Personally, I believe is because the obsession of my mind is so overwhelming. There is so much evidence, and this time it'll be different. We won't go to that place, or I won't go with those people, or it's Friday. At this point, the obsession of my alcoholic brain is so intelligent. It's like AI. It builds on itself. It's a computer that it takes something and it builds on it against me. And so I'm battling against an obsession that I have no control over. And when as Joe read, the willpower is almost non-existent. What willpower do I have against my own obsessive alcoholic brain? Because I have no evidence that I won before.
Well, when one's fighting against oneself, you're always going to lose, especially in this battle. Because your brain knows all of the twists and turns of our psyche to be able to maneuver it to a point where it convinces us literally to go beyond the defenses that we would create. Any argument to say, I've got to stop, I've got to do this. And it absolutely convinces us beyond any comparison to anything else that drinking is an option and that we're going to be able to manage it and maintain it, and everything is going to be all right.
Okay, to that point, and I have in my book the very last two words, we are without defense against
the first drink.
First drink. What does the obsession of my alcoholic mind know about the allergy that I also have? So why would they say the first drink?
Because that's the thing that kicks everything off.
That's all that's necessary. The obsession of the mind can then sit back for a minute and just watch the allergy take place. It's the old question, why can't I stop when I start? Well, because I have an allergy that we've discussed, and now I'm going back to the doctor's opinion, that whole allergic process, but that's all it needs. And there's an old saying, one is too many, 1,000 is not enough. Why is 1,000 not enough, or 10,000? Because I have an allergic reaction to alcohol, and my allergy says after the first one, and then the brain will kick in, hey, it's just one, what's another? What's another? And then before long, 4 days pass or whatever, and now I'm in a bad situation. So he makes a very clear point. It's italicized. Mm-hmm. All it takes is one drink, and then I'm off to the races again. I think that's very important to point.
Well, I think it's also important to bring into a conversation that the allergy of the body is also a manifestation of a phenomenon beyond our mental control. We do not have any control once this enters into our system. It is an automatic shut off between here and here, and then we're just off to the races operatingly in a state to where we believe there's going to be control. And we're trying to prove not only to ourselves, which is like a real mind-numbing experience, but we're trying to prove to the people out here that it's going to be okay, that we've got control. Because, I always wanted to be able to get on that phone and say, Mom, Dad, I'm no longer going to isolate from you anymore. I've got control. I only had one drink tonight. And you know what? That phone call was never made. Because it was always more, and more But in my head, I was like, I'm going to prove to them that I can do this.
Well, and I'm going to go out on a limb here. Someone might say that's listening, well, I can stop after the first drink. And I can have 2 and I'm done. And I say, outstanding. I've never had that experience. I've never actually had a drink.
Because you can't stop there.
Yeah.
What's the operative word in that sentence?
A drink.
A.
Right.
And so if someone can stop, that's wonderful. But again, we've talked about, and we'll talk more about, the moderate drinker, the heavy drinker, the alcoholic, all of that sort of thing. So I don't profess to get into a debate over 1 or 2. I'm speaking about a very specific genre of person, which is the alcoholic, where the first drink is taken, the allergy kicks in, and then it's off to the races. I just want to clear that up. So.
Joe, when you were talking about that a second ago, I couldn't help but just remember how manipulative our minds can be. Right. And I've used the phrase, I'll justify anything if I want it badly enough. You've talked, Dave, about the mental gymnastics that we'll put ourselves through, or that we'll put our loved ones through, just to get kind of approval, or I'll wear them down so much that they give up, that they just say, sure, they throw their hands in the air, so that I can get some sign that whatever I'm doing is okay, that justification. And that gymnastics, if I convince someone else that things are good, that things are okay, there's a part of me that goes, see, they're not dumb. They think it's right. They think it's fine. They think I'm good. They think I've got control. So I probably do. And so we gather this array of approval from other people, and it generates our own ongoing digging in to this self-destructive path.
I like that idea. We dig in. Because it doesn't stop. We continue digging. Yeah.
I had this experience. The guy looked at me and he went like this. Hello, 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 Dave, down in the hole. Put down the shovel. I'm just kidding. It didn't matter what was coming in. I'm like, just keep digging, just keep doing it. I'd like to make another point to your point. Think about what you just said. So you have the intellect, the persuasion, the tenacity to convince people of whatever you really, really want. I'm going to suggest that that's a wonderful talent. And one of the promises in the book is that we'll lead lives very differently. What if I could craft a scenario where this man who has this uncanny ability to convince and talk and connect with people in such a way that he can get what he wants, what if he repurposed that skill set and just used his talent that you honed very well while you were an alcoholic or drug addict and turned it, not in a manipulative but turned it for good? What if we could, in recovery, we're not saying put down all of our talents and skills. We're saying repurpose them, reinvent them. Use your persuasive, within reason, talents and skills to do good things, to help others. And I was taught that. I never saw that coming from a guy that helped me. He said, you could convince me. He said, let's say I'm an Eskimo, and the example, he said, I would buy trainloads of ice from you, Dave. That's how convincing you are. You look absolutely, and he said, I'm just going to ask you to pivot that. Don't sell ice to an Eskimo. He said, change your vocabulary, change your presentation in such a way that it helps. The reason I'm bringing this up is because we hone a lot of interesting skills. I'm not saying lying and those kinds of things, but we'll talk more about it later. But just keep that in mind, that there are some silver linings if we have the eyes to see them. Now, we have to be sober and we have to be in recovery, but I'm just saying there's some interesting things that we develop as human beings.
I like that idea, and I just the thought just hit my head, and I've got to share this because it just speaks to me. It's like that ability that we have in the addiction to convince ourselves is all about delivery. If we could switch that and tune that into being able to, instead of delivering that message to ourselves and like wholly delivering that to the environment and the people around us, the world would change, because it does. Okay, I'm going to continue.
Okay.
The almost certain consequences that follow taking even a glass of beer do not crowd into the mind to deter us. If these thoughts occur, they are hazy and readily supplanted with the old threadbare idea that this time we shall handle ourselves like other people. There is a complete failure of the kind of defense that keeps one from putting his hand on a hot stove. The alcoholic may say to himself in the most casual way, "It won't burn me this time, so here's how." Or perhaps he doesn't think at all. How often have some of us began to drink in this nonchalant way, and after the third or fourth pounded on the bar and said to ourselves, "For God's sake, how did I even get started again?" Only to have the thought supplanted by, "Well, I'll stop with the sixth drink," or "What's the use anyhow?" Now, I want to just share that, my mind in this, I didn't try to convince myself I was going to stop. I just kind of had a switch that just shut off, and I was just on autopilot. I didn't think any longer, because the only thing I was trying to do is I was trying to stop the pain that was in me. I related to that completely. And if anybody has any other additional thoughts on that, because I think that's a culmination of literally what we've just been discussing. And what's incredible is the old timers, the people that wrote those books, the people that were there when all of this was happening, they've had the same exact experience that we've had. And when people read this, I hope they're looking for the commonality and they're not looking for the differences, because that's such an important part of like our identity, to be able to step into, okay, these men got sober, can I have what they have? But before I get what they have, I have to understand that journey, and I have to relate to it as well. That's been my experience. Okay. When this sort of thinking is fully established in an individual with alcoholic tendencies, he has probably placed himself beyond human aid, and unless locked up, may die or go permanently insane. These stark and ugly facts have been confirmed by legions of alcoholics throughout history. But for the grace of God, there would have been thousands more convincing demonstrations. So many want to stop, but cannot.
That very last line resonates so deeply with me, both in my own life, my loved ones, and the people that have come into my office over the years. I want to stop. And I believe that genuinely when they say, I can't do this anymore. I want to be happy. I want to be sober. I want to be healthy. I want to blah, 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 right? All those things. I believe that's genuine. But cannot. That stands out to me so much. And I've looked over these last couple of paragraphs too, and I'm like, yep, I get it. I understand this one. But that last one, and to the listener, we so often want something so desperately. We want it, but we don't know where to go. We don't know where to begin. We don't know what that step one is. And I don't mean our step one, this step one. Like even prior to that, the Roman numerals of step one. How do I even get there? How do I build up enough strength to take that want, something that I desire, into almost this locomotive process? Like, I think I can. That concept.
Right.
What were you going to say?
Oh, I was going to mention that for me, it really had to start with a desire. Because until I wanted something different, nothing was changing me.
Yeah, I don't know what that means. I did not have a desire. I had nothing. Mm-hmm. And I'd resigned myself to, okay, maybe this is how I'm going out. So I look at that, and so many want to stop but cannot. So the converse of that is so many want to stop and can. So how do I become one of the ones that can?
Mm-hmm.
And it reminds me of a conversation I had with a fellow that wanted it, according to him, so bad. And maybe I've shared this, I don't know, but we would have conversations, independently wealthy, extraordinarily successful, late 50s, and he said, "What's the difference between you and I? Why can't I stop?" And I said, "I won't say anything but this." I said, "Because you've never started a program to help you stop. You give it lip service, you talk about it, but you've actually never done anything." I said, "So in other words, your audio doesn't match your video. Your audio tells me you want, but your video, what you do, it doesn't." So I'd like to just point out here very clearly that I agree with him. So many wanted to but cannot. And along with that, I say, well, then how did we get into the can? How did we do it? The very next 4 words that we're going to read next time is this, and they're italicized, and it says there is a solution.
Mm-hmm.
So many people want to stop but cannot. So that means there's no solution? No, they're saying blatantly, out loud, and in italicized words, there is a solution. And we're going to talk more about that. And that's what to me, that's where the great hope is. The hope with this strategy of this solution. And so I hadn't thought about this today yet. But I am here, alive on this earth. I've talked to both of my sons already today, and neither one of them are in the state where I live. One's not even in the country where I live. I'll talk to my daughter tonight, and I'll certainly see my wife, and we gave a hug, a long hug, before we left today. But there were many that wanted to stop but could not. But someone stuck with me, even though I could not. They stuck with me, and they stuck with me, and how I started, that's not what's important, is how I started. It's what I did after that. And the reason I bring up my family is because I have one, which means that due to this program, and I know you gentlemen have families as well, that means that we did something and someone saw something in us, and we got to be together, and then we had children, and they have children, and just very, very grateful for that today. And I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I love that. And there's almost a teaser there with so many want to stop but cannot. And we'll be diving into this in great depth over the course of these recordings, these meetings that we have. What's the difference between those who want to stop but cannot and those who want to stop and can? I don't believe that there's a genuine, true, permanent, I can't do it. I don't believe that it's absolutely over, that this disease has to be terminal. But there's something there that leads somebody to believe they cannot. And I can acknowledge there were times in my life, perhaps there are times in my life, I'll say it this way, where as I'm presently constituted, as I am today, I don't have all of the skills, knowledge, resources, abilities, whatever it is, by myself to become but I can. Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of the things where we go, well, I want that success, I want that health, I want that whatever it is, but cannot on my own, cannot by myself, cannot without asking somebody else, hey, will you help me? Or when somebody offers that support, letting them in, letting them shoulder some of that burden, some of that wound, some of that pain, some of that struggle, We have this thing we call ego, and we don't want to be a bother to anybody else, right? We don't want someone else's life to be more stressful because of us, because of what we couldn't do. And so there are times where we will refuse help, refuse that offering from somebody else. That
right there is one of my greatest stumbling blocks. I didn't want to overburden anybody else because I felt like my burden would overburden everybody else's. So I wasn't going to ask anyone for help.
I'd like to make another observation here. And I said the first 4 words of the next paragraph, there is a solution. Well, this chapter is called There is a Solution. The operative word there in that 4 sentences, a solution. So what we're going to see, and remember we talked about this book being a textbook and it scaffolds, it builds upon ourselves. So we spent a lot of time talking about the obsession, the allergy, the problem, which is the disease, and now we're moving into the solution. So we're going to see, we'll talk a little bit about some stories of individuals, but going forward, we're talking about solution. We're talking about the answers of how we can. So I want you to continue to watch and to listen and listen carefully. This page 25, it's got some juice. I mean, this is a heavy hitting page, and we're going to spend some time on this and dig deep next time. But I would wholeheartedly endorse you getting a pen and a pad and writing down, circling things and writing, because the juice is worth the squeeze. How about that?
Absolutely.
I like it. Well, in our book, we're going to press pause. Dave, is it good now to share your story? This last 24 hours? Or is that for a future time?
And there's no time like the present. So there was a time in my life when if I did something wrong, I would do everything in my power to camouflage it, deny it, manipulate, lie, and so there's a situation I'm involved with a good friend, and he trusts me implicitly, and I won't go into the detail of what the activity is, but it's some technical stuff. And a couple days ago, I studied, paid attention, watched, and I made a colossal mistake. There's what's really concerning for me is as much as I studied it and paid attention, I thought I was right. What's concerning now is I look back and my judgment, well, I thought I was right, but in retrospect, I was wrong, and I was dead wrong. Didn't know it at the time. And so after finding that out, I couldn't sleep. And I walked. It wasn't an issue of, do I call this friend of mine and admit it? That wasn't the issue. The issue was the weight of the disappointment that he trusted me implicitly, and I made this mistake, and just the weight of it. And I went home and I couldn't sleep, and so it's been 2 days since that happened. And so I'm very open, I'm very transparent about this. I prayed. And I said, this is in front of me. What do I need to know about myself right now? And what am I going to do about this situation? It is not an option for me to not say, because there was a way that I could not admit it, not say anything, and life would go on, and I would be the only one that knew. There was certainly that possibility, a strong possibility. And I thought, no, I'm absolutely going to tell him. I'm going to be very transparent about it. Why am I not calling him now? And what came to me is that I needed to dig deeper and find out what was at the root of what my actions were, or they weren't, that created this mistake. then what occurred to me is, don't just call with this superficial, hey, I made this small mistake, and then hang up. That would have been more dishonest, in my opinion, than not telling him, the real truth. And so what I've learned through this program is not to just react, is to respond, to take it to prayer. And there's a promise on page 86 that we'll get to, and it says, if we may face an indecision and we may not know what to do or which course to take, and there we ask God. I make no apologies for praying to God. This is what I was taught in this book. On one page, 8-9 times it tells me to ask. Why wouldn't I ask? There's something amiss here. The disturbance was not that there's something wrong with me. The disturbance that was happening, and this is a very important message that I learned, the disturbance that's wrong is my executive power. It's my heart and my soul saying, this is not right. You got to fix it. And what I found out over 48 hours, it just kept coming around and saying, you got to fix this. Now let's dig deeper. Let's put the details to it. Let's understand it. But fix it we will, or we're not going to have any peace. And so this morning I called him, and I opened this way. I said, you've been a trusted friend. You've entrusted me. I said, you've been very generous and open, and I embrace that. But I said, I need to tell you that I made a very grievous mistake. And I said, I've broken your trust. And I said, I want to be very, and he said, what in the world happened? And when I told him, and I didn't mince words, I just said, this is what I did. And he said, okay, so what did you do wrong? What's wrong with what? He said, that's nothing, Dave. I said, it's not to me. Mm-hmm. And I said, so much so that rather than me infringe upon your trust, I said, I'm going to stop doing what we'd agreed that I would do because of the gravity to me. And he said, absolutely not. He said, you called me. He said, this is forgotten. This is between you and I and done. And he said, and quite frankly, this doesn't even raise my meter. Now, I didn't use that as an excuse, but that was his perception. I guess what I'm trying to say here, and maybe I'm clumsy about it, is that if we take the interpersonal stuff that's going, when I say stuff, life inside, and there's something amiss, and we bring it about, and we take it to this power greater than ourselves, this power that's greater than me, and I ask directly, what do I need to know about me, and what do you want me to do about it? And then after asking those questions in prayer, I sat and I listened and I took notes. And I just had to go for a drive. And I will tell you, I went alone, and the tears came. And I thanked, after I called my friend, I realized our relationship is stronger than ever. And he said, thank you for calling. This is between us. We'll never have to speak about this again. He said, Dave, you didn't need to speak to me in the first place about it, but you chose to, and I honor that and respect that. And he said, more trust, more respect, even going forward. So after what we've read today, and where we say that we cannot, I'm telling you that today I felt divine providence in my life in a very important relationship, very personal, and in the details. It's not some overriding process or some generic or general comment. It was in my details this very day. And I'm a different, as I sit here right now, I'm a little different. And from that came the phone calls to my 2 sons, and I just said, I'm thinking of you, and just wanted to tell you how much you mean. Anyway, went on to tell them. The last thing I'll say about it is what we're trying to do is go from exactly the opposite of manipulating and all of it to living authentically with those around us, and they will sense it and they will feel it. I promise you, armed to the square. This is the solution to honest, wholehearted living. And I am just grateful that I get to partake of a small portion of it.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you for sharing that. And I'll echo that. This changes lives. This changes us. So thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. If you haven't already, give us a like, give us a subscribe, and share this show with your friends. Those who might enjoy looking at our beards or 67-year-old hairlines,
Yeah.
Some good stuff right there.
the addict or alcoholic who still suffers, the one who's got 10, 20 years of sobriety, but maybe they don't know what recovery is, or those who've been in recovery longer than I've been alive. They do exist. In particular today, the family members of the addict who still suffers. Our hope is, one of our hopes along this journey, is that we bring a little bit of education, comfort, and understanding to all. I am yet to meet somebody in my adult life, maybe I'll qualify this, the last 5 years of my life. I do not know a single person who isn't harmed by the grasp and the grip of addiction. That might not be their own personal experience, but a family member, a friend, a colleague, a neighbor, we all know somebody. And so something was mentioned earlier about the ways we deflect and distract and the differences. Let's come together. Let's recognize I'm not mad at my friend or my loved one or my partner or my child or this person I know who struggles with addiction issues. I'm mad at the disease. I'm mad at that force, that manipulative, insidious monster that grips those people we love. Thanks for tuning in. Stay with us. We're just getting started. Have a great rest of your day. Thanks for checking out this clip from the Do Your Dailies Big Book podcast. If you like what you hear and you want more, please like and subscribe and share this show with your friends, with your clients, with your sponsees. That's the best way to support us bringing you more recovery content. You can follow us on YouTube, Facebook, and X at Do Your Dailies. This podcast is sponsored by Hobble Creek Health and is edited and produced by Nielsen Digital.